how to make your computer accessible for learners with disabilities. First thing we do is we go to our Start menu and we then go to the control panel. The computer I'm using is Windows 8, but this does apply also to Windows 7 and Windows Vista. We choose Ease of Access, and you'll notice that there's two areas within our Ease of Access. You've got Ease of Access Center, which allows you to do various things to the displays, and there's also speech recognition that allows you to set the computer up to recognise verbal commands. I'm not going to look at that today. What we'll do is we'll go through to the Ease of Access Center, and this is the general layout. At the top of the page, you will notice that there are 4 what they call quick access to common tools. These include the Start Magnifier, the Start Narrator, Start On-Screen Keyboard, and Set Up High Contrast. You'll notice that there are 2 tick boxes. The first tick box says always read this section aloud, and then you've got always scan this section. If I turn on the always read this section aloud, what happens is as you scroll up and down, the computer actually talks to you. I'm not going to turn that on for the moment because it will interfere with me explaining how to use this. If we have a look at the lower settings, you've got various options dependent on the needs of your actual users. Now, the first one is use the computer without a display. This is perfect for blind users who might be using a braille reader or equipment like that. I'm not going to look at that. We also have use the computer without a mouse or keyboard, make the mouse easier to use, make the keyboard easier to use, and then we have use text or visual alternatives for sound. So when system beeps when it saves and things like that, we can add those in. And then it's got make it easier to focus on tasks and make touch and tablets easier to use. This is not a touch screen, so we will not look at that at all. Some of the options that are available in the different settings are also available in other settings within the Access Common Tools area. I'm going to look at make the computer easier to use. So what we've got here is choose a high contrast theme. Now, this actually helps improve the visibility of the screen for a user. It also has things like display a warning message when turning on a setting and make a sound when turning a setting on or off. I'm going to look at increasing the size of the actual cursor so that it's easier for people to see it. And if I now click here, you have a size through from 1, which is the default size, through to 20. And I would suggest that initially I would start at around about size 5 or 6 and then see if your learner actually needs it to be bigger or smaller. I'm going to keep that one, and I'm also going to increase the focus on actual things. So when you're actually going over a button, focusing on it, the actual rectangle around it will be made larger. And I'm also going to turn off all unnecessary animations and remove background images. That is really the very basic that you would need to do. So I'm going to apply that and click OK. And I'm going to go back to the center, and the next thing I'm going to look at is actually altering the mouse and making the mouse easier to use. Now, this part actually allows us to increase the size of the mouse pointers. Now, dependent on whether you are using high contrast or a standard widescreen, will depend on the colour of your actual mouse itself. The inverting one is really useful because it changes colour dependent on where you're actually moving the item to. I'm just going to click on the extra large one and just demonstrate how big it's got, and as you can see my mouse is now larger. I go to the extra large black and apply, and again we can see that's a good size, and I go to the extra large inverting and apply that one. So this will actually change colour. So if I roll over something, it will actually change colour as you roll over. I'm going to leave it as extra large white at the moment. You've also got the option of using the numeric keypad to move the mouse around the screen. This is quite useful if somebody can't use the touch screen on a laptop, or they find a mouse very difficult to use, so you can always utilise that. And you've also got things like Activator Window by hovering over it with the mouse rather than having to actually click on something, and that actually is quite useful. Going to set that up. And it also says prevent windows from being automatically arranged when moving to the edge of the screen. I'm also going to set that one as well. And again, you click apply and click OK. We'll just have a look at some of the other options. Start Magnifier is really useful. It allows a learner to actually magnify the page that they're looking at. The only thing I would say is that as you get bigger, you do get the pixelation, which can actually interfere with the vision. So it's a matter of personal choice. They may find that a standard screen size of around about 200% is all right, and all they need to do is just move around, and when they actually move into different areas, as the mouse moves, they can actually move up and down the page, as you can see. Now you'll notice that the little pop-up that came up with the magnifier has actually disappeared, but you've got a magnifying glass here, and all you have to do is just click on that and it will bring that interface back up. And you have different views that are available. At the moment we're in full screen mode. You've also got lens mode. Now that allows the user just to move over a small area and actually read the items that they're looking at. And as you can see, they can actually choose a very specific area to read. That's one option. And we just go back to our views here and we go to docked. Now docked is a slightly different system, because what it does is it keeps the page that you're looking at in the bottom of the window and the actual screen window. And as you roll over an area, as you can see, it's actually at the top of your screen, so we can actually move into an area. These options are very useful, and some are useful for certain learners and not suitable for other learners. So again, it's something that you need to discuss with your learner when setting these up. To turn this off, we just go back to our little magnifying glass, click on that, and we go back to the full screen. And to turn off the magnifier, we click off that, and as you can see, it's actually turned it off there. I'm going to have a look at the Start on-screen keyboard. And this is useful. You can use a pointing device for this. So if somebody wants to use a mouse, they can easily use the pointing device. If this was touch screen, you could actually use your fingers to touch it. The other option is you can actually use your mouse keys to move back and forth through it. So dependent on what your learners' needs are will depend on whether this is a useful item, and it's very easily turned off and we just click close once it's on. Another useful point about using the on-screen keyboard is it does actually protect you against hackers who are actually trying to look at your keystrokes when you're putting in passwords and things like that. So that's a really useful tip. I'm actually going to show you what the high contrast screen looks like, and it's quite easy to do. So we hold down the left hand side Alt key, Shift key, and then print screen. And you'll get this pop-up that says, do you want to turn on high contrast? I'm going to go yes, and there will be a break for a minute or two whilst it does that. As you can now see, we have the high contrast theme, and I'm just going to apply and click OK. I'm going to come out of our screen and just show you the difference that it actually makes with things in general. I'm going to turn off the magnifier because otherwise I won't be able to see my actual items, and I just want to have a look at say Microsoft Office Word so that you can see how that is seen when you're actually using it. As you can see, it looks quite different, but these colours are very, very specific for people with visual disabilities, and they work extremely well. And you notice that even the sort of colours are quite bright against the background. I would suggest that the view should be as large as possible, ideally, so that it actually fills out the actual area that they're working on. And that's much better. Also, we've got a good size cursor key here as well. To turn off our actual high contrast page, it's very simple. You just do exactly the same again. We do Alt on the left hand side and Shift and print screen, and then it actually makes a noise and we have to wait for it to go back to normal, and there we are, we're back to our original settings. Right, we're going to go back to our control panel, and as you can see, we've gone from our high contrast back to our standard one. I would recommend that if you're actually working with a group of learners, it would be a much better idea to have one computer set up specifically for one learner who needs help, rather than having to change the system every single time they come into class. So if you've got enough computers to do this with, this is the best thing to do, and then you've got one permanently set up for people with any visual disabilities or physical disabilities. I hope this short whiz around our Ease of Access Centre has been useful to you, and to undo any changes that you've made to your system, it's quite easy. You just go back into the Ease of Access Centre and untick the actual items that you have applied to your system.